being a hawker is not an easy task, but I think there's a passion and a determination to do well and not just simply produce a dish for your customer.
Hawkers need to have attitude of we have to endure all the long hours, here pain, there pain, every day pain every day. We got no holidays. Basically, we got no holidays. So when everybody got holidays, our holiday is at our store.
I don't think there's anything that is easy for F&B, but I think that you should be doing something that you like and you enjoy. So when you feel tired, or when you feel the hours are long, right? You will still want to continue cooking it. You still want to continue doing it. So I still bring it back to passion more than the cuisine. It really depends on how you want to do it, but I would say if you want to be different, then maybe a good 30k, because I feel that you need to have some savings also, because you won't know the rainy days and everything, so at least you don't feel so tired, then at the same time you don't feel confident. Yeah, then you run out of money, then you will want to give up very fast.
We have two existing schemes, one being the incubation store program, which was launched in February 2018. So what this scheme does is actually it allows aspiring hawkers to actually apply for an incubation store that comes with basic fittings at slightly reduced rental. So for the first 9 months, you actually pay 50% of the assessed market rent, while for the next 6 months, you pay 75% of the assessed market rent. So in a sense, it's 15 months of support for this group of aspiring hawkers.
So you have to really, either go to a good establishment to learn from a mentor, or you can go to culinary schools, especially in Singapore. There are so many culinary schools in Singapore, like Shatec, Republic Poly, Temasek Poly, ITE, Nanyang Poly, at Sunrise Global Chef Academy, and ACI, Asian Culinary Institute. So all the different schools offer different programs that cater to your needs. So if you really have a passion to be a hawker or to be a chef, consider taking up some courses or even a longer term course to get yourself a diploma in order for you to embark on this career and to have a rewarding career.
The generation now is much more different. We must engage in all this type of technology things. Like even if you got very good food, you need to announce to people. Yeah. We need to show people, we need to tell people, to announce to people that what I'm selling a very special thing. Yeah. So through social media, you can announce it to the mass public. Yeah.
We do have other support schemes to encourage use of technology. One, of course, is our Hawkers Productivity Grant, where you can usually use it for kitchen automation, service automation, and the grant level is up to about 80% of the equipment itself, capped at $5,000. The other part of it is, of course, e-payment. So what we're working with IMDA would be that of SGQR. So basically, it's a unified e-payment solution that has several options to you, your e-payment options, and we are actually helping hawkers go on board by actually offering incentives should you clock a minimum number of transactions every month.
Our new generation of hawkerpreneurs like Elizabeth and Melvin have shown us the potential of leveraging new digital technologies to propel hawker culture into new grounds. And I'm glad that more young Singaporeans are turning to the hawker trade as a career choice.
Welcome back. We'll run today's sessions as follow. First, we'll be discussing on the job opportunities in the early childhood sector, how can one be an early childhood educator, and the challenges working as one during the COVID-19 pandemic. Along the way, we will also answer some of the questions that you have submitted during registration. If you haven't submitted your questions, fear not, as we will still be taking in questions on Zoom. Feel free to type your questions into the chat box. Here with us today, we have Mr. Melvin Yong, Assistant Secretary General from NTUC, Director of U Associate and MP for Reading Mas SMC. As Director of U Associate, ASG Melvin oversees the PMET segment of the workforce. He also serves as the Executive Secretary of the National Transports Worker Union, and we are very privileged to have ASG Melvin as our moderator today. Our first panelist is Dr. Christine Chen. Dr. Chen is the founder and current president of the Association for Early Childhood Educators Singapore. For more than 30 years, Dr. Chen has been advocating for the development and learning of educators and parents. She also works closely with the Ministry of Education in their FLAIR program and with the Early Childhood Development Agency, also known as ECDA, in their kickstart program. Next up, we have Mrs. Lok Yoke. Mrs. Lok has served more than 25 years in the education service, holding positions of school leadership as well as divisional director at MOE. She was instrumental in leading the pioneering work in the setup of 15 MOE kindergartens and uplifting the quality of kindergarten education in Singapore. Currently, as the director of the National Institute of Early Childhood Development, Mrs. Lok leads NIEC in its mission to deliver its mandate on conducting high-quality training and professional development for the early childhood educators of Singapore. Our next panelist is Ms. Ainu Fahana. Ms. Ainu began her career as a teacher with NTUC First Campus. Other than having the Bachelor of Science degree in Early Childhood Education, she also holds a Master of Education in Drama from NIE. Ainu sees drama as a platform for holistic and an integrated approach to learning. Presently, she is the executive principal of My First School at Punggol Drive. Last but not least, we have Ms. Jereen Lee, Vice Principal of Learning Vision at Sengkang General Hospital. Ms. Jereen has been in the early childhood sector for 11 years and is passionate about this industry. She values the importance of establishing positive relationships with her students, identifying their strengths, and learning needs for them to learn effectively. So without further ado, I would like to invite ASG Melvin to provide his opening address. ASG Melvin, please.
Thank you, Jamie. A very good evening to everyone joining us on Zoom and Facebook Live. Welcome to our monthly panel discussion on job opportunities in growing industries amid the COVID-19 pandemic. We took a short pause last month due to the Phase 2 heightened alert restrictions, but we are back. And we have an exciting topic in store for you tonight. This evening, we'll be looking at the early childhood sector, a promising and growing sector with many good jobs available. Jobs in this sector has grown by more than 30% since 2016, and we expect the demand for early childhood educators to continue growing, with the number of student placements in government-supported preschools projected to increase to more than 200,000 by the year 2023. This evening, we have four very distinguished industry veterans, Dr. Christine Chen, Mrs. Lok Yoke, Ms. Ainu Fahana, and Ms. Jereen Lee. They'll be sharing with us more about the types of job opportunities in this sector and what you would need to know if you wish to embark on a career in early childhood. So to our Zoom participants, I'm sure that many of you will have questions during the panel discussion. Do use the chat function to send us your questions, and we'll try to cover as many questions as we can throughout the session. With that, let's jump right in and get started. Let us begin by understanding more about the early childhood industry. New parents are often confused when they hear terms such as preschool, childcare center, infant care, and kindergarten. Are these all the same? What are the differences? Christine, you have more than 30 years in this industry. Can you start us off by explaining the differences between these terms?
Well, I think in the local context, okay, when we say kindergarten, it really means 4-hour program, and the age of the children are from 4 to 6, kindergarten. Okay, the confusion comes when you look at childcare, and childcare is really full day care from 7 to 7. Okay. But in the childcare setting, you also have kindergarten classes. And that's why people get confused, you know, why in the childcare there's kindergarten and then you have kindergarten. So look at it simply that a kindergarten is a 4-hour program, okay, and a childcare center is a 7 to 7 program. But within the childcare center, the 7 to 7 program, there are classes called the K1, K2. Okay, so that is the difference between the kindergarten as well as the childcare centers. Yeah.
Thanks, Christine. Next, perhaps we can invite Ainu to share what is it like to be a teacher in a preschool. What is the teacher's role in infant care versus childcare and kindergarten? Is there a significant difference?
Right. When we talk about teachers in the infant care and in childcare, basically earlier what Dr. Chen mentioned earlier, for the infant care program, it's catering to only the infants aged 2 months to 18 months. And thereafter, in the childcare program, it's the 18 months to the 6-year-olds. So, of course, clearly it's the age group that's very different. And the main difference in the infant care, apart from the age group, it's really the aspect of care that is given to these different age groups of children. In the infant care, we focus a lot on the routines. And we know that where infants are concerned, we focus on routines such as feeding, having their naps. Activities are also carried out based on the individual age groups. And a lot of times, parents in this age group, require a lot more updates. So recording of the infants' everyday routines come in a little bit more at the infant group as compared to childcare. So in the childcare group, teachers, a day in the teacher's life, in the childcare group would be having a startup day as an assembly going on, followed by activities outdoors, followed by activities in the classroom outdoors, inclusive of areas where they're going to learn like mother tongue. So these exposures also happen in infant care, but in the childcare, a little bit more structured, a little bit more scheduled. So we know in infant care programs, it's very based on individual infants' routines, individual infants' program, not so much of like, okay, everybody let's have a nap now, everybody let's do this now. So very different in that aspect as well. So for those who are interested to be an infant teacher and childcare teacher, we need to see which age group would you really want to work with closely. And for infants, the care component is so great there. Yeah.
There is a question that just came in from our Zoom participants. So the question is, between infant care, kindergarten and preschool, which segment has the most demand for manpower right now?
Okay, I would say all in all, there is a demand in every area, and it really depends on what kind of program you want. So for example, based on experience, those who are interested in a full day program, so a preschool that is from 7 to 7, teachers work that particular shift will have that opportunity to be building that relationship and rapport with that same group of children over that whole day. If you're in a kindergarten program, you probably have 2 different classes that you need to teach in the AM and the PM, and you would not really see the routine component in a kindergarten program as much as you can see in a childcare program where NAP is concerned. The 3 types of meals that's being served, having that opportunity to interact with children for breakfast, lunch, and tea time happens in a full childcare program. So if I'm answering that question, it's really on what kind of relationship or rapport that you want to build with the children, whether you want the whole class to yourself from 7 to 7, or would you want to have that break of 2 different groups of children and not having that much so of care component, the routine component.
Thank you, Ainu.
Welcome.
And it is heartening to know that our young children are receiving good quality care and education in their early years. Now let us move on to the job opportunities in this sector, which is the primary objective of tonight's session. As at end September 2020, there were over 1,900 available openings in the early childhood sector, with 85% of them in PME roles. Taek Yong, for those without any prior experience in early childhood education, can they apply to be a preschool teacher?
So, good evening, everyone. I'm Teck Yong. So, certainly, those without any EC experience can apply for our training courses. I think what is most important is, as we all know, for young children, it is very important that we also attract people who are really interested in working with young children, love being around children. They are curious about how they learn and also want to be able to make a difference in their development alongside their parents. So certainly it is about aptitude as well as attitude. The dispositions, you know yourself best, whether you have got the temperament as well to be able to work with children. And of course, on top of meeting our minimum entry requirements of courses, what is important is really, I like to emphasize, really your personality and your disposition to want to work with young children.
Thank you very much, Teck Yong. Jareen, we have a question from our audience. Someone on Zoom asked, what is the difference between a teacher and a center leader? Can you share some insights with us on this?
Okay, so for teachers, Ainu has shared some regarding teachers' role as well. So you get to plan lessons for children, you care and nurture for them, and basically you care for them and you have direct contact with the parents as well, like to work together with them for children's development. So for a center leader, a center leader actually oversees the entire center's curriculum, so not just on a particular level or a class. So apart from the curriculum side, the center leader would also be managing center operations, like in terms of manpower and staff well-being, staff bonding is all these, yeah.
You mentioned something about designing curriculums, right? So there is a question right now from one of our Zoom participants. With the move to become a smart nation, will early childhood start to incorporate technology into their curriculum? So do the teachers use technology to design the activities to reach out to the children a little bit more?
So currently we do have technology for our preschool children, mainly from age 4 to 6. So whenever teachers plan for such things, we actually integrate technology as well, because we know that technology is actually a huge part of our lives right now. So as the children move along, they need such skills to actually move on to primary school or even to society. So we do integrate such technology, such as using the computers or even simple things like using of cameras and all that. So when they do their learning, sometimes when they do research, they actually use like search engines such as Google or all this to actually search for information regarding their learning. So all these are actually integrated in the lessons that are planned for them. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that insight. I've been seeing a lot of kids at the hawker centers and food court swiping around with their parents' handphones, so they learn some of these skills from their preschool. So we have another question from our Zoom audience, and this is a very popular question for almost all our panel discussion. What is the entry salary for a preschool teacher? How much can a typical preschool teacher earn? So perhaps, Teck Yong, would you like to take this question?
Sure. So this is actually a reflection of also the growing demand for EC professionals in the sector. I think that we have a slide that we would like to show you where there are possible salary ranges. This is public information and it is from the Mom Job Situation Report just last year. So you can see the salary ranges. It depends on what role you want to take and where is your career progression. So like the rest of my panel shared earlier on, it is really about the age group of the children you would like to work with. Then as NIEC, we are the National Training Institute. We have got several training programs to take you there in able to acquire the qualification, the skills and knowledge to work with young children. So one thing you will notice that what is available here, we can see that over the last 5 years, on average, there's already been a 70% increase in the salary ranges. So it really shows the growing demand for EC educators and also good job prospects.
Thank you, Teck Yong. Now that Teck Yong has given a glimpse of the salary in this sector, Christine, can you share with our audience what is the career pathway for an early childhood educator? Is there a long runway for both personal as well as career growth?
Yeah, I mean, it's so much better now. We have the educator track. I think in the earlier slide, we talked about educators. We have the educators track. They work with children below 3. And then from 4 to 6, you have the teaching track. And they have, you start as a teacher and then senior teacher, and then you can be a lead for K1 or lead for K2, okay, that track. And then now, in addition, they have the early intervention track as well. So there are 3 tracks. And in addition, it's not really published, but there are other tracks, like, let's say if you're in this job and you want to take a part-time job because your son is in primary 6 and your daughter is in O levels and you don't want a full-time job as a teacher in the preschool, you have part-time jobs like we call pro-flair, who would work in small groups with children. You can work 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, whatever you want. And then there's also, a national program called Kickstart, where you can be a Kickstart facilitator. So it is a job that, you can have many options. And now with the focus on quality education for young children, we believe that for the children to have quality education, we need to take care of the teachers' professional growth and development. So there's a lot of growth potential in this sector.
Christine, you mentioned a little bit about part-time job opportunities available. Is there a high demand for these part-time jobs, and will the hours be flexible enough, especially for those who have care commitments at home?
Okay. Well, I also, in addition to the FLAIR program, which I talked about, is very flexible. You can work 1 hour a day, 2 hours a day, or 3 hours a day. You can opt for centers around your area, okay, and large organizations also do have a substitute pool, where you can register yourself, in this substitute pool, and then if they need teachers, teachers who go on maternity leave or emergency leave, they can call you. So for people who at the stage of development or stage of your life that you need to take this kind of temporary jobs, there are a lot of opportunities.
Thank you very much. I think later on in the later segments, we will probably talk about how do you then qualify to take on some of these jobs, be it full-time or part-time. There is another question with regards to the growth in this particular early childhood sector. I think one of our participants asked, with declining birth rates in Singapore, will jobs in the early childhood sector continue to grow, or actually will it shrink in the years to come?
So if I may take the question, certainly when we see how our society is also evolving, really there's also evolving family needs as well, where we can see that family increasingly need also that support in terms of the childcare places as well. So we can see that there's a demand, and also we see that there's also increasingly parents also wanting to look for infant care services as well. So in taking a look at the sector, certainly there is room to say that the centres are looking for additional manpower, and at the same time you can see that with the setup of the Early Childhood Development Agency in recent years, they are the sector regulator and developer. Actually, it has given that lift for the profession as well, to say that when you join the sector, it's not just about entering the sector, but there is progression, there is ongoing in-service training as well, of which NIEC also play our part in providing the courses. So I'd like to say that in terms of the demand, it is really about, actually there's an evolving need, that there are increase in the childcare places, and that must be also complemented by the increase in the EC professionals. And we're also not just for looking at numbers, we are looking for people, like I said earlier, who have the disposition, the wanting to work with children, and then to enroll in courses to get the right qualifications so that they have the knowledge and skills to nurture the children, and the parents will have full faith that their children are well taken care of. And this is very important because also the research tells us that early childhood experiences actually are critical in influencing the life trajectory of children. So hence, I think we're in the right direction, that the government is also investing heavily in this sector. I think we saw that the government is investing easily over 2 billion a year because of the strong belief that we want to give a strong start for every child.
Thank you very much, Teck Yong. I think the next question probably will require either Ainu or Jareen, is that earlier we mentioned about the different teacher role in infant care, child care, kindergarten. So one of the suggestions from a participant is that to increase the demand, actually we can reduce the ratio of teacher to student. But I think in the different role that the early childhood educator play, be it in infant care or child care, I think the ratio is different, right? So perhaps you could share some insights into what is the ratio like in the different subsectors within the early childhood space.
Okay.
Now maybe Ainu and then later Jerry.
Okay, sure. Okay, so to answer to that, yes, there are different ratios from infant all the way to 6-year-olds. So for infant care, it's 1:5, followed by in toddler, which is the 18-month group, it's 1:8, and then the 3-year-old group is 1:12, and then you have the 4-year-olds, which is 1:5, and then it goes up 1:20 and 1:25 for certain groups. So while the ratio is something that all of us are following through, and this is really set, by ministry. So to answer to that question as well, if the ratio is reduced, perhaps the demand will be there. I think we also need to look at how can we work with this ratio. It's also about, that is how, if I put it very, very across in this way, is ratio, or the talk about ratio, is always the top topic in every parent or teacher forum. But at the end of the day, it's to ask ourselves, apart from just comparing ourselves with other countries or other nations' ratio, it's to see how we can work with this resource that we have. And this is why the educators in Singapore, and the early child educators in Singapore, are challenged in this way. How can we function and work with different groups of children within this space, within this ratio, within this resource? How can we make full use, complete use of these things that's already been given to us? So while we can't change the ratio, we can change the way we do things, we can change the approaches, we can review these things and keep that goal in mind. Yeah.
Thank you. Jareen?
Okay, so for ratio, like what Ainu has mentioned, it is actually one of the top concerns for all parents, and not just parents as well, even educators. Sometimes we do experience like some difficulties facing certain issues, especially if, let's say, we are looking at EGDA ratio. If you are taking a K2 class of 1:25, and then in it, like we might have some children with special needs. So for an educator point of view, it's actually quite difficult to manage even if we do meet certain ratio. But that come to see it because she mentioned that to actually increase the demand, we have to reduce the ratio. This is like what Ainu said, it is not up to us, but definitely if we have more manpower, then this might be something that the ministry could look into. Yeah.
Thank you all very much. So I think before we move on to our second topic, let us shift gear a little bit with a short lightning round so that we can address some commonly asked questions. So this will be a quick round for everyone. So let's start with Jareen. What do you think is the biggest misconception of this job?
That being an early childhood educator is an easy job and all we do is play with children all day.
So you don't just play with children, right? So question for Christine. You have been a big advocate for educators. What is the greatest satisfaction that you get from your work?
Well, I think the greatest satisfaction is to see the field, growing and moving forward. 30, 40 years ago, there was no much training for the teachers. Practically everybody can just start to be a childcare teacher and then go for training. But now we have the polys that would take in students after their O-levels to be prepared for the job. And I think that is the biggest step ahead. Because before we only had what we call in-service training. That means you have to have a job and then you get trained. But now we have pre-service training, and I think that's the biggest milestone for our profession.
And a lot more development courses even while you are in the job.
Yes, and there's also a continuing education, and I believe Teck Young and her institution does all that.
That's right.
Yeah.
So actually the next question will be for Teck Young. Are there any scholarships or tuition grants that can cover the course fees for early childhood courses?
Since our audience today are mid-careerists, I'd like to say that for mid-careerists, actually, we strongly encourage you to consider taking up the professional conversion program under the place and train mode. And this is very attractive in the sense that you are employed by the operator, and you're working in a center, and you get sponsored to take the course as well, and you draw a salary. And what is most important is for company-sponsored candidates, we do find that you are actually working in a very authentic work environment, and this is very important in providing you with the environment for you to also practice the theory that you learn in our training courses as well. And as you saw in the slide just now, actually Singapore citizens as well as PRs, they do enjoy MOE subsidies as well. And there are also other schemes that's available for some of you. It could be the post-secondary education account savings, or it could be the Skills Future credit as well.
Thank you very much. And I know the last question, what is the highlight of a typical work day for you?
Okay, so when I was a teacher, the highlight would be witnessing the little milestone that the children achieve. Every day, any child will give you a surprise. So that would be my highlight as a teacher. And as a leader, it would be having a parent compliment or show appreciation to my teachers. So that would be my highlight.
Thank you very much. Someone told me that you'll never grow old because your customers are always young.
Indeed, yes.
Thank you everyone for your questions. We'll continue to take questions throughout the panel, so please keep the questions coming. Now that our audience has a general sense of the types of job available, the career pathway, and the salaries, let us move on to the next burning question. How do I enter the early childhood sector? Teck Young, as a director at the National Institute of Early Childhood Development, could you give our audience an overview of the type of courses available for our aspiring preschool educators, and which training institutions can they go to?
Okay. Well, at NIEC, we are the National Training Institute for Early Childhood Educators set up for the Ministry of Education. So we were set up because it is also to recognize that we want to make sure that the quality of training is uplifted, and also uplifting the EC profession as well. So remember, the EC training is a professional training, and the qualifications are in a way overseen by the Early Childhood Development Agency. So the courses being offered will need to satisfy the requirement to give the training for in terms of knowledge and skills to be able to work with different age group of children. And you can see on the slide that there are certain qualifications that is currently offered by NIEC. And when you look at the courses, there are also different modalities. Because our audience today are mid-careerists, so we understand that you also have got different needs when you, let's say you want to be under place and train. Your employer will also see how to be able to sponsor your education, and there'll be different modalities. The modality could be you will be working in the center, but you actually take the course for 2 days or 3 days a week, or it could be at night, etc. So in terms of the qualification, really it is about what age group you want to work with, and when you enroll at NIEC, it is really a practice-oriented course. So I cannot overemphasize enough, it is a professional training. So there will be a fair amount of professional rigor, and your access to children is quite critical. And I would like to say that in terms of progression, because it is not just about the training to get you started as a beginning educator, all of us will want to see, okay, then where can you progress progress next. And essentially, NIEC also serve in-service educators, and there will be what you call post-diploma certs, so that it depending on your area of interest that you want to go deeper in. For example, in supporting children with special needs, there will also be relevant courses as well. So importantly, it is really about getting yourself started by enrolling in the course that will have the rigor and the standard for you to have a good start in your profession.
Thank you very much. There is a question from a participant. You mentioned about mid-career switches. Is it possible to try a short stint before committing to this sector as a long-term career? So can someone say, let me go and try out first, and then if I'm interested or I'm suitable for this, and then I go join the program, because some of the program can be quite long in terms of the amount of time needed. What do you all think? Do you all have such mid-career switches?
Yeah, maybe I can take this question. We do have queries like that, and so what we would recommend is for the candidate or the person interested to actually try being a relief teacher for a period of time. So being a relief teacher doesn't require you to have these certifications. It's basically supporting the main teacher in the classroom, so at least you have a feel of how is it like in the day of a preschool teacher before you want to decide, okay, this is what I want to do. So that would be something that we would suggest to be part of the relief teacher program or the scheme, and then if you're finally decided, then perhaps you can take the course. Yeah. So other than that, we do have tryouts or trials for teachers, but during this COVID period, it might be slightly different. So this is something that we would offer or suggest.
That's good to know. Another question is, other than being a teacher, that means just purely teaching role, are there non-teaching roles in the early childhood sector? And if so, what are these, and how can I apply for them?
Maybe
Jareen,
I can answer. Yeah. So we do have like assistant teacher roles where basically the assistant teacher actually helps with more of the routine and maybe helping teachers to manage the children in small groups when they are doing the lesson. So for this assistant teacher's role, they are more assisting and supporting the teacher while she's conducting the lesson, so not so much of planning and executing on her side. So we also have like assistant teachers who are mainly focused on educarers, so helping children with their routines and all that, such as diaper changing and without the teaching component.
Yeah, I also would like to add that the Association for Early Childhood Educators Singapore, we call it ACES. Okay, we have a basic course that is short, and it will allow the assistant teachers, like what Jareen was talking about, to be working in a center. So from the participants who come to us, we found that many are just coming in, for the short course to know a little bit about child development and working with young children, and then try out as an assistant teacher in the centers.
Yeah, that's good. There is a question here from our Zoom participant. Is there an age barrier to transition into this sector? Especially we mentioned about mid-career switches. Is the sector open for mature PMEs who's now in another industry to come into this sector? And if so, is there an age ceiling where beyond this, then we do not encourage someone to join?
So maybe I can give the perspective from the training angle. There is no age barrier or age requirement in the way, as in upper limit of the age group in joining our training. I always go back to the fact that, first of all, it is really about your interest, right? Your disposition, you wanting to work with children. But I guess we also need to then see what the professional training is like. So in our experience, the training can be quite rigorous, of course, because we're talking about getting you certified and registered to practice at certain level, that it is actually also with the Early Childhood Development Agency. So there are certain professional requirements that you must meet the standards in order to practice. And to be registered to work in certain roles with different age groups of children. So professional rigor is there. That means the ability to connect theory to practice and also be a reflective practitioner. because that's very important in working with children. It's not just the doing, it's the link between the research, the theory, and in practice. So that's one angle. And also we know, and I think my panelists can also add in at the center, we do know that for early childhood educators, you need to be with children. So it means that sometimes you have to get onto the floor. I think maybe not sometimes, actually very often. You need to get onto the floor with children. You need to be running with them at times. You need to be standing, squatting, illustrating, role modeling the energy level with young children as well. So there is also a certain level of physical stamina in order to work with young children. So with all this in mind, maybe you can take it in and say, oh, do you fit this profile in order to take up the training?
Christine, you mentioned earlier about ACES. So for those who wish to know more about this industry beyond today's session, where can they get more information from? Are there any platforms, right, that they can ask?
Well, I think the best would be email at info@aces.org. info@aces.org.
So they can just
Yes, and
reach
then,
out
and
to
then
ACES.
and then we will, direct to the
That's
necessary.
right. Thank you very much. We have another question. Perhaps I know you can help us with this one. Other than having a passion to work with children, what are some of the attributes that are important to be a good early childhood educator? Earlier we heard about having a lot of energy, being able to move around a lot with the children. What are the other attributes that you think would be important for someone to be a good early childhood educator?
Okay, so the list is very long, okay, but this is my opinion. I think first thing is, as our panelists have mentioned earlier, having the passion, having that patience. Passion keeps you, going in the job. Passion is the thing that, that's why you started the job. And patience is something that you always need to have with you. So this too has to always be in there, but there's definitely more to that. And I would like to introduce this term called the COVID era teacher. The COVID era teacher or the COVID era educator is something that we need to think about, because when coming into this field, we need to be ready as a COVID era teacher. Someone who is adaptable, resilient, with lots of grit and strength, because as advisories change, we also need to keep up with it, right? So exactly how we need to be able to be in the know of what's going on and be able to take up the challenge with every group of children that we're coming, with every group of children that we're meeting. It's never the same group of children every year. So it's really the adaptability, the resilience that you need to keep up as a COVID era teacher for now.
Well, I'd like to add to that, addressing people switching careers, from my experience, I see that people who come into the field were mothers, mostly mothers, right? We hope that fathers would come too, but mostly mothers would come. And you have worked with your own kids, as sometimes as stay-home moms, sometimes maybe part-time mom or whatever. But these skills are also transportable into our sector in early childhood. And then, you go for the necessary course and then you'll be better equipped. But you already have skills because you have worked with young children before.
This morning I was looking at the news and they mentioned about encouraging more guys to join, right? So one of our participants also asked, can a guy be an early childhood educator? Jareen, what is your take on this?
Yes, definitely you can. So in fact, actually in early childhood field, we do have some male educators already, even though it's very little, like majority are still females. But when we do have like male interns coming over to do their practicum with us, we do see like children get really excited and they really enjoy the interaction with a male adult because it is something very special and unique to them. So also from a male's perspective, they actually give in a different perspective in terms of education, in terms of curriculum, and the way they interact with children. So actually they provide a fatherly figure in the school and also a positive role model for males as well. Yeah.
Christine, with your 30 years experience in the industry, do you see a changing trend of more guys joining the industry compared to before?
Definitely, but I hope that it will be more.
And how do you think
not
we can
keeping up.
encourage more guys to join, more males to join? Yes.
So maybe I'd like to just chip in that there is a very good sign that people are asking the question as well, right? Ever more so that how come there are not as many male EC educators? I think the awareness means that actually we hope to have more. And I think as a training institute, we also find that we want to encourage more male applicants. Essentially, we find that for young children's development, I think look at society. You need both gender in our society. And I think for the preschool centers, they are microcosm of our society. So I think there's a growing awareness that actually the male EC educators will bring certain insight, perspective to young children, and not only that, but to the team as well. The way issues are addressed, the way curriculum is designed, I think male EC educators are strongly encouraged. We want more of them. So I like to strongly encourage our male applicants to think about it, right? It is a very fulfilling profession.
I hope after tonight's session you get much more applicants
I hope so,
coming
yeah.
in. I think we have a question, and I believe this question most likely from an NTUC member. Are there any place and train programs or professional conversion programs available for a mid-career switch?
Yes, yeah. So I'll take that question. Essentially, I just want to reiterate that actually for the training, they are all tied to what you say professional qualification, right? So in our institution, we have got 5 courses. I think just now you saw a listing of courses. We have got 5 that is offered as a professional conversion program, which is in a place and train modality. This is company sponsored, right? And there's some criteria in order to be placed on this program by your employer. So all the details I think you can find on the website. But essentially with this 5 diploma or cert program that we have, what is important is to say that it is targeted for mid-careerists. So you need not have prior EC qualifications, but clearly you should be employed by employer, and actually it's also a way to say actually whether you are suited to be in this work as well. And within 6 months to apply for the course. What is important is to make sure that you are able to find the employer who is participating in this place and train program, and you can be sent for the training. Yeah. So it is really important that you also take a look at what we have at NIEC. Besides the place and train, we also have other courses, right? For those who may be interested in company-sponsored but not quite fitting the bill here, there are also possibilities, and also for self-sponsorship. And I would like to say that, just to add, that we do have a course preview at NIEC on 12 August. Access our website and you can register for it. And you can hear from the perspective of my lecturer and about what the training is like, and to give you more information. So you're welcome to sign up at our website on 12 August. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have another question from a participant. I have a diploma in early childhood. I've taught for 4 years, but I left some time ago in 2006. Is it possible for me to return to the industry?
Yes. I think if you have just left about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I think it's possible, but I just don't know what qualification you had before that. So what you could do as a first step is go to the Early Childhood Development Agency website, take a look, because they do have a listing of all the qualifications that is considered valid to be registered to practice as a preschool teacher. So just take a look at the list. Your qualifications could still be valid. Yeah.
So there is a time frame where if a person leaves the sector, not too long, then it can join back quite easily. But if it's beyond a certain time frame, there could be some bridging courses.
Okay, so how I see it, Melvin, is this. Actually, over time, there has been different what you call regulatory requirements to become preschool teachers or educarers for different age group of children. So actually, some of you may be, like say, veteran, you join, then you leave, but because they may then up the qualification needed, then that's where you need to actually go for a valid qualification. So it all depends on actually our audience background. So I suggest it's quite case specific. You may want to check the Early Childhood Development Agency website. But if you are coming on stream now to become an EC educator, you must take what is currently offered that is recognized by ACDA to be practicing as an EC educator. Yeah.
Okay, do you think primary school teachers can switch easily to the early childhood sector? I think the age group can be quite different. So perhaps our two principals, you see people from the primary school switching over to the early childhood. Was it an easy transition?
Okay, maybe I can take this. Okay, I've had experiences with candidates joining in from the primary school sector to the preschool sector. First, it is not difficult to understand the theories and the child development units or subjects. That is definitely not difficult. Yeah. But I think when they join the preschool sector, some things surprise them. Things that they never knew actually exist in the preschool is happening in terms of how children are learning, how the classroom is being set up. And so it becomes a little bit of an eye-opener for them. And then they start to realize, oh, now I know why the primary school does it in a certain way, or why certain children come to us in a certain, in a certain development, So it is not difficult. And I think it's really how the teacher or that the candidate is able to stick to that resilience, able to understand and work through their way in terms of understanding the preschool years and linking it to the primary school years. Again, the age group is not so big anyway, so it's really of getting the adjustment, getting them adjusted into the preschool sector. Yeah.
Jareen, anything to add?
To add on also, I think it's also mainly because like what Ainu has shared, the age group is not that big, but mainly because like for primary school teachers, maybe it's very structured learning. So they have like, they have recess bell, they have all kinds of bell to actually tell them that, hey, my time is up. But in a preschool setting, it's very much different in a sense that if for lunch, you still need to be there to serve lunch to the children, which is very different from primary school, because primary school, like children are more or less like more independent already. Once it's recess, they go and get their own lunch. So teachers might be able to do their own work during this period of time. But whereas for us, for preschool teachers, like for all routine, you have to be there with the children because we believe that we cannot leave children alone. So even when they go to the toilet, you would need yourself or an assistant teacher to actually accompany them to the toilet to do certain routines as well. Yeah.
So activities and roles and responsibilities do differ, but the transition, I think, will be a little bit different in order for them to transit.
Structured.
Yeah, less rigid, but a lot more responsibility. Yes. Thank you everyone for your very interesting questions. I'm very conscious of time. Time has flown by very quickly, and we are now into the last quarter of our session. Our final topic for tonight: what are the challenges working as an early childhood educator, and how has teaching been different during this COVID-19 pandemic? Jareen, can you share with us how has COVID-19 impacted the way your preschool teach?
So when COVID-19 happened last year, I was actually taking a pre-nursery class, 3-year-olds. So when they came back from a circuit breaker, it was actually quite tough initially to get them to abide to all the social distancing rules, putting their mask on properly, making sure that, because when children, like they are very sociable. So when they come back, they miss their friends, they want to hug them and do all these kind of things. But actually for children, they adapt very quickly. So it took a while, but with all the guides, like our social distancing markers and all that, they got used to it pretty well and quickly. So for teaching wise, mainly when we do large group now, we need to make sure that we abide the social distancing rules, make sure that children are not sitting too close to each other. And when we teach, we still need to put on a mask as well. And sometimes, initially when it happened, like it was quite difficult because some pronunciation and all that, it might be not clear. And yeah, so but apart from that, during circuit breaker, we also needed to do like online lessons, like teaching online. So it's actually not very easy for a preschool student. So I had incidents like children are just like staring into space, and when you talk, like they are just ignoring you.
Just like now, it's not so easy for us with no audience in front of us.
Yeah. So yeah, I even had a child who started like doing a house tour when we had our lesson online, and you couldn't stop like him.
Oh, you could see him.
Yes, because
he's walking around.
Our cameras are all turned on. So he was very excited seeing the teacher and his friends as well. So he started giving a house tour. Yeah.
Oh, to the rest of you?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so these are some things that we have to get used to, because even with the heightened alert previously, they actually encourage parents to stay home. Then we will need to actually prepare resources for parents to use at home if they decide to keep their child at home, and also to prepare like online lessons to support their child, to make sure that their children have like interaction with teachers and some of their peers as well during this period that they are home.
Yeah, certainly it's not been easy to transit, both for the teachers as well as for the students.
Yeah.
Right? I know someone asked, are early childhood educators just caretakers? But I'm certain there's much, much beyond that. Would you like to enlighten our audience?
Definitely. Okay, so earlier Jane mentioned earlier, and I think she got that question about misconception, right? And I think this is one of the misconception of seeing an early childhood educator as a caretaker. We, as the name suggests, educator, you know, so there's education involved and there's care involved, which makes us an educator. So now, we won't term ourselves as caretakers because we do a lot more than that. And I think earlier we've been speaking on the things that we need to do, and Jareen has mentioned so much about how we need to adjust in terms of receiving children after circuit breaker or even through the heightened alert. How has COVID changed in the ways that children are learning? So looking at it in this way is definitely not seeing as early child educator as something like just child minding or just play with children all day. It's a no for that. It's really looking at the successes of children, and we know that plenty of research have spoken so much about the early years, you know, and brain development. So we are doing what we need to do for the earlier years, and we are at the most important period of a child's life. So who else is doing it more importantly other than us as early childhood educators? Yeah, so I think it's really to see that, and with this COVID-19 coming in, you know, teachers are challenged very differently. And I would like to add to what Jareen mentioned earlier. How do we pivot this notion of COVID-safe measures, you know, while keeping the learning goals and still maintaining social distancing in the classroom? So these things comes in as a challenge, but I can't change my learning goals. I can't change the objectives because I need to still make sure my children meet these milestones, meet these objectives, but I need to review my approaches. So all this is the work of an educator in that preschool classroom.
Yeah, I would like to add to this term of caretaker, you know. I mean, research have shown that the brain develops the quickest at this early stage, okay? So the serve and return, they call it, you know, interacting with young children. We, as early childhood educators, are the architects for the brain, okay? And we are the builders of foundation for lifelong learning. We are nowhere near just being a caretaker.
That's right, and that's probably one of the primary reasons why the government is investing so much in early childhood development to the tune of billions of dollars, right, every year.
Yes.
Teck Yong, earlier I think both Ainu and Jareen has mentioned about the way that they teach has changed because of COVID-19. How about at NIEC, how has COVID-19 affected the way NIEC deliver your training?
Yes. For NIEC, we also have to respond very quickly to the COVID-19 situation. So all our courses at some point had to go online. In fact, our so-called the classes for adult learners as well as the shorter continued professional development courses are all online at this point in time. And of course, I feel that my take on it is that actually, my students are very resilient. Despite the disruption to different mode of learning, they actually rise to the challenge. And of course, my faculty had also to transform the teaching and learning online, and as well as to provide support for the students. But what we feel that is still very critical is we are watching the situation very carefully, that throughout the situation, there were windows where, of course, our trainees are able to get into the center. That's why get into the center to do their practicum. I cannot overemphasize enough that our EC professional training, an integral part is our practicum. And if you're company sponsored, you're actually working in the center as well. And so whatever happens, you will have your practicum place for you to complete the requirement of the course. So I think it is very important that there are certain elements of our course that you still need face-to-face, especially in order to be workplace ready. So in order to do that, I think being on the Place and Train program, company-sponsored, will be great. You will actually be able to draw a salary and be able to also pick up the skills and knowledge. And even if there's COVID-19 and there's some, I think centers will have some restriction, you are actually working in the center. So you will continue to have your course undisrupted. Yeah.
That's good to know. So, Jareen and Ainu, what do you think are some of the challenges working in this industry? I think in previous panels, some professions, they cite long working hours, sometimes they cite flexible working hours. So what do you think are some of the challenges for someone who wants to join this industry to consider before they decide to make that move?
Okay, I'll go first. Don't get me wrong, I love my job, but there are still challenges definitely in all industries, including early childhood. So one of the few challenges would be managing different expectations from parents. And then we also have our teacher-child ratio, which was previously mentioned, which might be affected due to teachers' absence, our lack of manpower, if teachers like take MC or urgent leave on that day and we couldn't meet like certain ratios. And yeah, so these are some challenges, and also I think more importantly, like the work-life balance, because like what Ainu has shared just now, so being a teacher is not just caring and playing with the children, because apart from your working hours, you still need time to actually, look at your children's observation, based on your children's observations, dictate like how do I plan to actually help them progress further. And then our lesson planning, our evaluation, all these comes, and sometimes it takes up some personal time as well, because even though we do have children's nap time to do our work, but sometimes we do conduct meetings, or sometimes children who are not napping, they might need you there as well. So you might not be able to complete certain tasks at that point of time. And that's when you might need to take time after working hours to complete certain paperwork.
So to add on to that as well, I think at the end of the day is to see how can we prioritize what we need to do, because any teacher who is watching this right now would agree with me and Jareen that our to-do list will never get shorter. Yeah, and this is where we need to learn the art of prioritizing, the ability to see what requires our attention first, because everything looks important, but what do we need to focus first? So I would like to also look at how can we shift these challenges to opportunities, and I think that's we always look at it that way, right? So earlier Jareen mentioned about parents. So first thing is definitely parents can be of different expectations, just as in any customer line that we work with. It's important to look at parent education. So the opportunity is parent education. How can we create that platform for parents? And the second one is on the support system. So if we have a structure in the school, a culture in the school where we can anchor the support system, I think things can get done. You will feel better with that kind of support. The third one is the vision and values. Every organization, every school would have vision, would have a value that you want to hold on to. And I think that is something that we need to always remind ourselves. What is our vision? What's our value? Because we can be easily strayed away when something else crops up. And the last one is, of course, the emotional cup, which is everybody has their own emotional cup. And it's important as teachers, as educators, we need to take care of our own cup first and ensure that, we are able to have it filled so we can support other people. So it's not about whether your cup is half empty or half full, but, all our cups are refillable. So we need to refill our cups first before I can offer to other people. Yeah.
Thank you, Jareen and Ainu. We have time for one final question, which I think we can get all panelists to share. What is one piece of advice you would give to someone who is starting out in this industry and is having difficulties adapting to the pressure? Maybe Christine? There we go.
Well, I've always said that, working with young children, there's always something new to learn every single day. And learning from children is so fresh. It's like a breath of fresh air, when you come in. Yeah.
So I think one piece of advice is actually just acknowledge it will happen. Because in any profession, especially the teaching profession, you can expect that as a beginning EC educator, you will face challenges. But what I can assure you that in coming on to NIEC courses, you will get the knowledge and skills. At the same time, you'll be surrounded with like-minded people who are in training to want to take up the profession. At the same time, once you hit the ground, right, you do your best. What I would like to suggest is build your peer network. Surround yourself by people who believe the same conviction as you to be advocates for children. You will get better with practice, definitely, for sure. And at the same time, remember that you are building a career. So the first step is really about knowing that you have to practice, get to work in a team, refresh yourself with in-service courses and training, and then over time, you will gain greater confidence as an EC educator.
Ainu?
Okay, so I've kind of summarized it earlier. It's really on, one advice is really, if we're doing this, we're doing it for the children, we're advocating for the children, and there are many children out there who require our attention, our care and support, and there are also groups of children that don't even receive this at home. So we are the frontliners for this group of children and families, and if I want to look at parent education, who else can do it so much more than the role of a teacher. So if you're going to start this, then along the way, along the journey, like any other job, it's going to be tough, it's going to be a challenging one. And this is where we get out of our comfort zone. Because of the challenges, we feel that we can learn more and we will grow more. Yeah.
Jareen?
So there will definitely be times when you may feel like you want to give up and all that. So make sure you have your own network of friends who are in the same line, where when you need to, just rant to them. But don't forget why you started in this line at the beginning, and also acknowledge all your minor achievements, because we often overlook what we've achieved so far, coming from a beginning preschool teacher all the way along. So all of us actually, all the panelists here, I'm sure we face difficulties and challenges just like you. So it is how you actually look at it and overcome it that would help to make your journey a fulfilling one. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We have run out of time. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you for your many interesting questions, and special thanks to our 4 panelists for taking precious time out of your busy schedule to be with us this evening. I'm sure our audience has gained much valuable insights into the early childhood sector, just as I have. COVID-19 has been a huge disruption to many industries and affected the livelihoods of many workers. We started this series of monthly panel discussions last year to highlight good job opportunities in growing industries. Amidst the prolonged pandemic, the early childhood sector has been a resilient and growing sector. As our panelists have shared earlier, Singapore needs many early childhood professionals to help shape the lives of our children throughout their early years. And the pandemic has shown that we need more, not less educarers. Today, I learned that a career in the early childhood sector can be truly fulfilling and impactful. Not only are educators taking on the important role of teaching and preparing our children for success, they also play multifaceted roles, partnering with parents and the community to care for our next generation. To attract and retain our early childhood educators, the government has invested significantly in developing this sector. If you are contemplating a career in early childhood but wish to have more in-depth one-to-one guidance on how you can transition into the industry, do write to us and our career coaches will be happy to assist you. To conclude, I would like to thank everyone on our panel, Christine, Teck Yong, Ainu and Jareen, for sharing your insights with our viewers. With that, we have come to the end of tonight's session. Good night, and I look forward to seeing all of you again soon. Thank you very much.